sure you guys have seen some of my tweets, which I'm glad that we get to talk about it because I think tweets can be taken out of context. Sometimes maybe they're just exactly what they are, and fans don't like to hear that, oh my goodness, maybe their team isn't the greatest of all time. So I'm getting a little bit uncomfortable, not totally, because I can understand why this thought process would come into your mind, that Alabama and Georgia have separated themselves from the field. They are at another level, and I could understand why we would think that. Undefeated, pedigree, talent, all of that. But I get a little uncomfortable after just 5 games that we're already christening these two as the elites of college football. So I, presented some stats about Georgia's, the team. Their defense is, the best since the 85 Bears. Like, we're hearing all this great, the great stuff about this defense. And they're awesome. There's nothing that would tell you otherwise. My only pushback would be some of the competition that they played has not been elite. The quarterbacks that they have faced, not exactly a list of, top NFL talent that's going to be coming out of this draft. So here's the bet I have proposed for you. And I know Bud, he's seen some of this conversation. So he's like, oh, do you want Bama and Georgia versus the field? No, because I think there's a chance like one of the national champion might come from these two. My offer to you guys, if I can get any takers, I don't think Bama and Georgia are 12-0 when they play in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. So that's the offer.
No.
You wouldn't take it?
No.
So you're not both 12-0?
What's that?
Wait, straight up that they're both 12-0?
Yep.
What kind of odds are you giving me on this?
Well, see, that's why I work with a nose tackle on my radio show. He just doesn't ask for odds. And now I'm dealing with our guy, Bud Elliott, who's really into the numbers. What kind of odds do I get? We didn't take it that far. I just think they're gettable, right? I mean, saw
does he take it that they both go undefeated with no odds?
Yeah, he's sucker. We back and forth. I suckered him right into there. I think it's an outstanding bet for me because I don't have to pick when it happens. We've seen Alabama go to Gainesville and be this close to getting beat. We haven't seen Georgia really tested yet. I mean, they do still have to play Florida. They have to go to Auburn this weekend. Like, there's still some tests kind of on their schedule, and it's college football. Like, we've seen this wildness happen before, and it wasn't that long ago, about 5 weeks ago, that we were like, it's Ohio State, it's Clemson, it's Bama and Georgia. They're in their own category. We've seen 2 of them get knocked off. It's already kind of starting. Oklahoma looks vulnerable. We had them in a category all by themselves. So I just think the narrative of, these 2 teams have separated we're a little bit ahead of ourselves.
I think there's a second part of it where I do think they have separated, but I think there's other teams that can get there. Mm-hmm. I like to look at college football in the season a little bit with that race mentality where, yes, there is some distance between Alabama and Georgia and the next best teams in the country. However, if we see CJ Stroud continue to get comfortable, this Ohio State team could be on the level of an Alabama or Georgia by the time we get to the college football playoff. The same could be said for a team like Oklahoma. The same could be said for maybe even a Penn State. Like, I don't think they're going to get to Alabama or Georgia levels, but I think that this gap that we see so far through 5 weeks is just almost Alabama and Georgia being ahead of schedule. Because you mentioned the quarterbacks that they face. They haven't faced a lot of NFL quarterbacks. Has there been good quarterback play in college football this year? Period?
The best one they'd face is on Alabama.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, because if you look at the rest of Georgia's schedule, like to this point, they've played Clemson, UAB, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Arkansas. Agreed. Not exactly a murderer. So quarterbacks, DJ is the best one they've played. And while that was DJ's worst game of the year by far, it's not like he's been playing extremely well since. But like Auburn this week, I don't know. Can Bo Nix do that 2 weeks in a row? Maybe. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it against Georgia. And then it's Kentucky. Not really worried about the QB situation there. Florida, Emory Jones. If they could make him one-dimensional, I'm not really worried about the quarterback situation there. Connor Bazelak. I mean, like Tennessee, Charleston Southern, Georgia Tech. Like, looking at this situation, what's the passing attack there that you're actually scared of?
None. And that's kind of my, like, that's where I think of all of this, I think it's to their, like, I used to get, it's so funny because Bama fans about 6 or 7 years ago hated me, despised me. And, I'd give him a hard time on Twitter. I'd tweet out some stats similar to, it's almost identical to what is happening with Georgia right now, because Bama, I thought, was vulnerable because they were too one-dimensional. They had great defenses and their offenses were old school. They would have game manager at quarterback, and I'd give them they face a good offense who can put up points. They could be in trouble. Sure enough, it would happen. Clemson knocks them off. Ole Miss knocked them off once, twice. And I look at Georgia, and they could win the national championship. They could go undefeated, but I'm a firm believer that at some point they're going to have to get something on the offensive side of the football that is not 56 rush attempts. Like, you can't do that against everybody. Maybe in the regular season you can, but you can't do that again in the SEC championship game. I don't think you can do it whoever you face in the playoff. And if you want to win a national championship, like that, to me, is the bar that Georgia should be held to. And I know we've heard about Todd Monken and we've seen JT Daniels throw for 300 yards, so there's more excitement. But I think their offense could be a problem still that could hold them back from achieving their ultimate goal, which is a national championship. And when I say that, Georgia fans are like, oh, you just hate the SEC, you just hate the dogs, you're just picking on us. That's my only point in all of this. The defense is awesome. They haven't really been tested. When somebody puts up some points, can they go on the other side, flip it around, and put up points with them? And that, to me, is a massive question mark for Georgia.
This is kind of the same argument that we had on Monday, right? When we debated who is a better team. And I said, I think right now, Alabama is the better team because I do trust them to score points. Against a really tough defense, do I trust Georgia to score points with this iteration of Georgia's offense with who is healthy right now? No. We saw it against Clemson, right? They did not score an offensive touchdown. I do think Georgia's ceiling is higher than Alabama's if Daniels and his receivers get back and healthy, because clearly, I think their defense is better. Bama's defense is not going to get to Georgia's defensive level. I think the biggest room for improvement could come from Georgia's offense. But like Danny, I would take your side in this, right? Even though I do think the most likely record for both teams is 12-0, I don't have that as more likely, as like a parlay situation. You see what I'm saying here?
Mm-hmm.
I would want odds if I was going to take them to both going.
Well, yeah, you're smart. You're into the analytics. You're into the numbers. Of course, you're not going to take that.
Yeah, you.
This to me is one of those. And I have another. We haven't announced yet. Prominent SEC network analyst, radio host that wants in on this. This to me is you get, and this is what I'm kind of good at, maybe, and might make you hate me. Like, you get them a little riled up, get them a little emotional, and they're like, yeah, they're the best. They're going to do it. I'm like, all right, prove it. Like, let's go. Like, show it in a bet that I think absolutely favors my side of it. So